Hey peeps, this is 77 and today I'm going to be talking about the options that are currently present in the PC version of Need for Speed Heat. The reason I'm doing this is so I can give you guys an overview on the options that are present in the PC version for those that are considering getting the game on PC, as well as to give some feedback to Ghost on what settings need to change or be added during Need for Speed Heat's live service. The way I'll be doing this is I'm going to be going through the settings menu, category by category, setting by setting, and discussing what's here and what isn't, as well as make suggestions as to things that either need to be added to the game, as well as things that would be nice to see added in the future. Without further ado, let's hop into the menu. Firstly, we'll look at the game and driving options together, as any new additions could potentially go in either. Firstly, we have difficulty. This is fine, does exactly what you think, no complaints here. Then we have some HUD and display type stuff like game mode info, minimap on or off, subtitles on or off, speedometer on or off. These are nice options to have, but they're very basic in my opinion. It would be nice to be able to customize these aspects a bit more. So with all the HUD stuff, it could be nice to see if we can scale the HUD. You know, make it bigger, make it smaller, as well as change the safe zone, so we can have the option of moving it all closer to the edge of the screen or closer to the center. When it comes to subtitles, the implementation in this game is fine. In fact, an accessibility website called Can I Play That gave Heat a score of 9.3 for its subtitles. That's a very respectable score, good job Ghost. However, they note that it would be great if you could resize the subtitles, which I agree with. It would be a nice option to have. I personally found them to be rather large, so it would be nice to be able to make them smaller. Some people might even want them larger. Unfortunately, one thing that the review failed to point out is that none of the cop chatter is captioned. It's a shame that none of it is, because the cop chatter in this game was quite good. I especially liked the nighttime chatter. So it would be awesome if there was an additional option for subtitles called On with Cop Chatter, so that anyone can enjoy the cop chatter. Finally, for this section, we have this option called Camera Height Adjust. Now, when I was testing this setting out, I was very confused as to what it did exactly. Judging by the title, I thought it raised the position of the camera up in general. In addition to that, I was confused by what the description of the setting was saying. Because of that, I asked on the Need for Speed Discord what the setting was, and it turns out that it actually dictates how high the camera will lift up when you push up on the right stick. So this is actually a really cool setting, and I'm glad that it's in the game, as there were times where I ran into traffic in the hilly areas of the map because I just didn't see them. Now that I know what this is, I hopefully won't have that happen as often. With that being said, this setting needs a much better description because the current one is not clear enough. The fact that I only knew what it was after asking on Discord says it all. It should change from, quote, scales how high the chase camera moves on pitch input to something like determines how high the camera will lift up after you push up on the right stick, or something like that. In summary for this section, the things that need to change are the inclusion of optional captioned police chatter, as well as changing the description of the camera height adjust setting. What would be nice to see changed or added is the ability to resize the subtitles, scale the HUD, as well as change the HUD safe zone. Alright, let's hop over to controls and, well, let's address the elephant in the room. Controller remapping needs to return. This is a feature that was present in Need for Speed 2015 and was for some reason absent in Payback and remains absent in Heat. The reality is that some people might find it difficult to enjoy the game with its default control scheme. Of course, there are third-party solutions out there like Steam Input, as well as DS4 Windows if you're using a PS4 controller, but I shouldn't be forced to do that, so I can change my shift up and shift down to A and X respectively. Heat's controller options are rather embarrassing compared to what's on offer in a game like Forza Horizon 4, as that game had numerous layout options as well as the ability to make your own. It's also somewhat managed to have fewer options than Payback, as that game let you choose from 2 controller layouts. Heat has only 1. Aside from that, if you don't have a controller, you can rebind your keys perfectly fine. There are some issues here though, as there are keys that cannot be rebound, like for example the default pause key is tab, not escape, and you can't change that. Some inputs are straight up hidden away from this menu as well. For example, the in-game objectives menu and phone app menus cannot be rebound. So in summary, what needs to change is that there should be an option to rebind controllers or at least have alternative layouts. Key binding also needs to be improved as well, so we can rebind pause as well as the other menu keys. What I reckon would be nice to see added, these are by no means essential, but native PS4 controller support. If that is something that cannot be done, it would be cool to have the option to switch the button prompts from Xbox to PlayStation, so that people who decide to play using PS4 controllers, using third-party methods like Steam Input and DS4 Windows, can have the option of seeing their respective prompts. I know For Honor actually does this, and it's quite cool in my opinion. Alrighty, now let's head over to what I guess is the most important menu, the graphics menu. Firstly, we have window options. We've got full screen, windowed, and borderless. Very nice, no issues here. I'm very happy to see borderless be an option, as it was not present in either 2015 or Payback, so it's very good to see it here in Heat. Next, we can change which display we want to display the game on. Very nice. You'll be surprised by how many games don't have this. We then have our resolution options. No issues here. The game actually defaults to your native resolution, so hopefully you won't have to mess with this too much. Then we have VSync on or off. It's nice to have the option if you get a lot of screen tearing while playing this game. Next, we have HDR off or auto. If your display supports it, cool. If not, just have it off. Now we have a resolution scale option. This is really nice, as what it does is it allows you to decrease the game's rendering or internal resolution, so if you're running into some major performance issues, you can lower this and still have your HUD and UI render at your native resolution, so you don't have to deal with any weird stretching or whatever. Alternatively, you can increase this so the game itself can render at a resolution that is higher than your native, so you can get a much better image quality. It's a cool setting, but only use it if you know your graphics card can handle it. Next up, we have motion blur on or off, which is pretty self-explanatory. After that, we have a general graphics quality option that goes from low, medium, high to ultra. This changes all the following settings to match. These being textures, shadows, texture filtering, ambient occlusion, of which we can choose from SSAO, HBAO, AAO, AAO full as well as off. Then we have effects, geometry, anti-aliasing, where we can choose from FXAA, TAA or off. Then we have terrain, vegetation, post-processing, reflections, depth of field, and lighting. All in all, we have a really nice amount of options here. I don't remember Payback having this many, so it's really good to see improvements in Heat. But of course, there are still some changes that can be made. Starting off, we'll talk about anti-aliasing. I'm glad that we can outright disable it. This is something you can't even do in Battlefield 5. By the way, I'm going to be making a few comparisons to Battlefield 5, as that game is also powered by the Frostbite engine. But it would be cool if we can set how much of each AA technique is being used. When it comes to depth of field, it would be nice if we can disable it instead of just having it set to low. Other than that, there are some settings I'd like to see added to this menu. Firstly, the option of capping the frame rate without having to use VSync. This is an option that is present in Battlefield 5. I like to see it in Heat because while VSync does a good job at capping the frame rate to your monitor's refresh rate, it does so at the cost of input latency, which is a bit of a big deal for a racing game. One thing I've seen a lot of talk about in the community is regarding settings like chromatic aberration and film grain. While these don't bother me, it would be very nice to have the option to disable these effects individually so that anyone who wishes to disable them doesn't need to apply any mods in order to do so. Finally, I want to talk about some more general improvements to this menu. Firstly, the descriptions. They're pretty basic. For example, the description for texture filtering is adjust the filtering of textures. What does that mean? For ambient occlusion, there's nothing that tells us what the difference between these settings is. Like, what's the difference between HBAO and AAO? Which one is the most performance intensive? Same thing applies to anti-aliasing as well. I'd love to see Ghost take notes from some of Ubisoft's games, like for example Assassin's Creed Origins. In that game there is a nice description for every setting, and not only that, there's an image that shows you what exactly that setting does. That way everyone can be easily informed on what each setting does exactly. It's also very useful because the player won't have to go to the routine of picking a setting, applying it, leaving the menu and seeing what's changed, and then going back and changing to the next level up or down, so you can see the difference, as the image in the menu will just straight up show you. Finally, it would be really nice to see a VRAM counter. That way the player can easily be informed on the number of resources that would be needed to run the game with the currently selected settings. That way the player can see how far they can increase the graphical quality of the game before it hits their graphics card's limits. It's a very useful feature and I'd love to see it be added. So in summary, I reckon we need to see the addition of a non-VSync framerate cap, expanded anti-aliasing options, the ability to turn off depth of field, chromatic aberration and film grain, and it would be nice if the setting descriptions were more helpful, that each setting had a set of comparison images, and finally the implementation of a VRAM counter. Alright, that was a fair amount there. Let's finally move on to audio, and I have to say, Ghost did a fantastic job with this. There are so many options here. You have your master volume, sound effects, and you can change the volume of all the different in-game music. And you can even lower the volume of the cop chatter and even disable some of it. You really do have the freedom to make your own audio mix here, and because of that I reckon there's nothing here that really needs to be changed. As a result, I only have one suggestion that I think would be nice to see, and that is the return of EA Tracks. For those who don't know or don't remember, EA Tracks allowed you to customize the game's music playlists, as it allowed you to pick which specific music tracks played at different points in the game, like either in the menus or in gameplay or even both, as well as set the order of the music, and it even gave you the ability of removing individual songs from the game's playlists. It was such a good feature and I'd love to see it return one day. And that is it for the settings menu. We do have one more menu here, and it's this accessibility menu. This is very good to see. I don't remember the last game in the series to have something like this, and I'm glad to see this being implemented, as we have quick access to things like narration, subtitles, colorblind settings, quick access to the audio stuff, text-to-speech, and even the ability to disable certain lighting effects. This is a fantastic menu, and aside from the subtitle changes I mentioned before, there's nothing else here that is in desperate need of being changed, so good job Ghost. So that will be all for this video. Once again, the purpose of this video was to inform you about what settings are present in the latest PC build of Need for Speed Heat as of this recording, as well as give feedback to Ghost on what needs to change during the game's live service. Once Need for Speed Heat's live service concludes sometime next year, I will be making a follow-up video where I run through the settings menus again and see what's changed and give feedback on what needs to be done for the next Need for Speed game. I didn't talk much about performance or optimization in this video, but if that's something you're interested in hearing my thoughts about, let me know. Other than that, if you found this video useful or if you just enjoyed it, definitely consider clicking that subscribe button. Regardless, I hope you're having a very nice day. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.